The 300 Spartans are among the most famous warriors in history. They have been celebrated in books, paintings, films, and legends for centuries. According to the story most people know, 300 Spartan soldiers stood alone against the greatest army on earth. Surrounded by hundreds of thousands of Persian warriors, they fought to the last man in a hopeless battle that became the ultimate symbol of courage. But there is one problem. The 300 Spartans were never alone. The real story of Thermopylae is larger, more complicated, and in many ways even more remarkable than the legend. Because while history remembers the Spartans, thousands of other Greeks marched beside them. They bled beside them, and they died beside them. To understand what really happened at Thermopylae, we have to go back to a time when the fate of Greece hung by a thread. In the early 5th century BC, the Persian Empire was the most powerful state the world had ever seen. Stretching across 3 continents, it controlled vast territories from Egypt to Central Asia. Its kings commanded the immense wealth, enormous armies, and countless subject peoples. Few nations could resist Persian power. Most did not even try. Yet across the Aegean Sea stood a collection of fiercely independent Greek city-states. They shared language and culture, but rarely shared peace. Athens, Sparta, Corinth, Thebes, and dozens of smaller cities spent much of their time competing with one another. Unity was rare. Rivalry was common. That division seemed like an opportunity for Persia. The conflict began when several Greek cities in Asia Minor rebelled against Persian rule. Athens supported the uprising, angering the Persian king Darius. His response was simple. Greece would be punished. The first Persian invasion ended unexpectedly when an Athenian army defeated Persian forces at the Battle of Marathon. The victory shocked the ancient world. For the first time, a major Persian expedition had been turned back by a Greek army. But nobody believed the danger had passed. Persia possessed resources far beyond those of any Greek city-state. Eventually, another invasion would come. The only question was when. That answer arrived after Darius died, and his son Xerxes inherited the throne. Unlike his father, Xerxes planned something far larger than a punitive expedition. He intended to conquer Greece completely. For years, preparations continued across the empire. Roads were organized, supplies gathered, bridges built, ships assembled, soldiers summoned from every corner of Persian territory. When the invasion finally began, it was one of the largest military operations of the ancient world. As news spread across Greece, fear followed. The Persians seemed unstoppable. City after city faced a choice: submit or resist. Some chose submission. Others prepared for war. But resistance required something Greece rarely possessed: cooperation. Representatives from several city-states met and agreed that if they fought separately, they would be defeated separately. A united defense offered their only chance. The question became where to make a stand. Greek leaders eventually chose a narrow coastal pass called Thermopylae. The location was ideal. Mountains rose on one side. The sea lay on the other. At its narrowest point, the pass restricted movement so severely that Persia's numerical advantage would be difficult to use. A massive army could not attack everywhere at once. It would have to squeeze through a bottleneck. If the Greeks could hold that bottleneck, they could delay the invasion, perhaps long enough to save Greece. A force was assembled and sent north. This is where the famous number enters the story. 300 Spartan warriors marched under the command of King Leonidas. Each was an experienced soldier. Each knew the danger ahead. Each became part of a legend that would outlive empires. But Leonidas did not arrive with only 300 men. Thousands of other Greeks accompanied the Spartans. Forces came from numerous cities across Greece. The total number remains debated, but ancient sources indicate that roughly 7,000 Greek defenders initially occupied the pass. Spartans formed only a fraction of the army. The myth of 300 standing alone would come much later. At Thermopylae, they stood among allies. Together, they waited. Soon the Persian army arrived. Ancient writers describe numbers so enormous that modern historians continue to debate them. Whatever the exact figure, the Persians vastly outnumbered the defenders. The contrast was unmistakable. One side represented the largest empire on earth. The other represented a coalition fighting for survival. Xerxes expected the Greeks to flee when they saw his army. They did not. He waited. Still they remained. The delay confused him. Eventually he ordered an attack. Persian troops advanced into the pass. The Greeks held their ground. Wave after wave crashed against the defensive line. The narrow terrain transformed the battle. Persia's numbers mattered less than expected. Only limited numbers of soldiers could engage at one time. The Greeks used heavy armor, long spears, disciplined formations, and intimate knowledge of the terrain to devastating effect. Persian attacks failed. Then they failed again and again. The defenders maintained their position. As casualties mounted, frustration spread through the Persian command. Xerxes reportedly watched the battle unfold from a nearby position. The expected victory was not arriving. Instead, the invaders found themselves trapped in a costly struggle against a much smaller force. For 2 days, the defenders held. Spartans fought alongside men from Thespiae, Corinth, Phocis, and many other Greek communities. Every success belonged to the coalition. Every casualty was shared. The battle was becoming a symbol of resistance. Yet, unknown to most defenders, disaster was approaching. Thermopylae's strength depended on the pass remaining secure. Unfortunately, there was another route. A mountain path wound around the Greek position. Local knowledge made the path valuable, and eventually that knowledge reached Persian ears. A Greek named Ephialtes revealed the route to Xerxes. The betrayal changed everything. Persian forces moved during the night and advanced through the mountains. The Phocian troops assigned to guard the path were unable to stop them. By morning, Leonidas received devastating news. The Persian army was moving behind his position. The defenders were about to be surrounded. The mission had changed. Holding Thermopylae indefinitely was now impossible. The question was no longer whether the pass could be defended. The question was how much time remained. Leonidas faced a decision that would define his place in history. Many of the Greek forces were dismissed. Their withdrawal would allow them to continue the war elsewhere. But not everyone left. The Spartans remained. So did hundreds of helots who supported them. And crucially, several hundred soldiers from the city of Thespiae chose to stay as well. They knew the outcome. They knew escape was unlikely. Yet they remained beside Leonidas. This is one of the most overlooked facts in the entire story. The final stand at Thermopylae was not fought solely by Spartans. The Thespians stayed voluntarily. They faced the same danger. They accepted the same fate. And they died on the same battlefield. As dawn broke on the final day, Persian forces closed in from multiple directions. The defenders fought desperately. Their original defensive position became impossible to maintain. The battle grew increasingly chaotic. Spears shattered. Swords replaced spears. Eventually, even swords were lost. Ancient accounts describe warriors fighting with whatever remained. The struggle became a battle of endurance and sacrifice. Somewhere amid the fighting, Leonidas fell. His death triggered fierce combat around his body. The defenders understood the symbolic importance of their king. Again and again they fought to prevent the Persians from taking him. But numbers could not be resisted forever. Gradually, the surviving Greeks were pushed back. Encircled and overwhelmed, they continued fighting until the end. By the time the battle concluded, the defenders had been destroyed. The pass belonged to Persia. From a purely military perspective, Xerxes had won. The road into Greece lay open. Yet something unexpected had happened. A defeat had become a symbol. News of Thermopylae spread rapidly. Across Greece, people learned that a small coalition had resisted the mightiest empire in the world for days. The story inspired determination rather than surrender. The sacrifice bought time. It strengthened resolve. And it transformed the war. The Persian advance continued southward. Athens was evacuated and later captured. For a moment, Persian victory seemed close. But the Greeks were not finished. The delay at Thermopylae helped coordinate further resistance. Soon another critical battle would occur at sea. At Salamis, the Greek fleet achieved a stunning victory. Persian naval power suffered a major setback. The following year, Greek forces won another decisive victory at Plataea. The invasion that had threatened to conquer Greece collapsed. Xerxes' grand campaign failed. The consequences reached far beyond a single battlefield. The survival of the Greek city-states shaped the future development of the ancient Mediterranean world. Political systems, philosophy, science, literature, and military traditions evolved in ways that might have been impossible under Persian conquest. Thermopylae became part of that larger story, not because it was a victory, but because it represented resistance when defeat seemed certain. Yet, the legend gradually changed. Over centuries, attention focused increasingly on Sparta. The image of 300 warriors standing alone proved irresistible. It was simple, powerful, easy to remember. The thousands of other Greeks who fought beside them slowly faded into the background. The Thespians were often forgotten. The allies became footnotes. The coalition became a legend about one city. But history tells a different story. The Spartans were extraordinary soldiers. Their courage at Thermopylae deserves its place in history. Yet they did not stand alone. They were part of a larger force composed of men from many Greek communities. Together, they faced overwhelming odds. Together, they resisted one of history's greatest empires. And together, they made Thermopylae unforgettable. The real story is not smaller than the legend, it is larger. Because the Battle of Thermopylae was never simply about 300 Spartans. It was about thousands of Greeks who chose to stand together when everything suggested they should run. And that is what makes the truth behind the legend even more remarkable than the myth itself.